All right, we are back to episode 2 with Jason. And today, Jason, what are we talking about?
I believe we're talking about salutogenesis today.
Is this your favorite topic?
Um, eh, Sometimes, I actually, I guess I would vacillate from salutogenesis to eudaimonia. Salutogenesis is more kind of the concept, whereas, well, eudaimonia is a concept as well, but it seems that eudaimonia is more the application of salutogenesis, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll take it. All right, so, we talked about a little bit in the first episode. And thank you to everyone who's listening, watching this show. We've got good response to the first episode, already 1,000 plus downloads for the first episode alone. So that's great. Thank you. And we want to go deeper today in salutogenesis, and we want to uncover how Jason can bring his expertise and share his views and tell us more about it. So, Jason, directly going into the first question, um, can you again explain to our listeners what exactly it is and how is it different from traditional focus of healthcare?
Uh, sure. Little background. Salutogenesis was introduced in the late 1970s by Aaron Antonovsky. He's a medical sociologist, and his work focused on understanding how people maintain and move towards health even when faced with significant adversity. And he created the salutogenic, uh, um, he coined the term salutogenesis, and then he created a model based off of the health continuum, which is kind of what we talked about last time, where you've got illness to one side of this continuum and health to the other side. And he emphasized the importance of a concept that he called the sense of coherence. And it's kind of a psychological framework that influences how we perceive and respond to challenges. His framework had kind of three main components: um, comprehensibility, manageability, and meaningfulness. And that's just the ability to make sense of life's events. Manageability is having resources to handle the stressors, and meaningfulness is the finding purpose in, I guess, life's challenges. And while his ideas primarily address the psychological and social aspects of health, I look at it more from a systems orientation point of view. Um, uh, and so as an engineer, I guess I focus on the physical and chemical foundations of health, factors like nutrition and environmental influences and cellular resilience. And I'd like to, I guess, introduce the concept of balance and daily balance to this, where bodies, they're constantly weighing between and balancing between resources and stressors. And how we adapt to that dynamic balance each day determines whether or not we move towards resilience or dysfunction on that spectrum. And I can explain the balance a little bit better. And let's name it and call it the eudemonic scale. So you've got resources on one side of the scale. I envision this as, the fancy old copper scales or brass scales. And so on one side, you have the resources, which is the positive inputs that support health, such as the nutrients, a supportive environment, and practices that enhance well-being. And then on the other side of that scale is the stressors. And those are the challenges or demands that test our system. And then the balance between the two determines whether or not that particular stressor or your adaptation to that stressor is positive adaptation or negative adaptation. And if you think about the way that I think about it is, the little the fulcrum bar on a scale where you've got a counterweight that you can adjust. Well, every day, generally as we sleep, right, is when most adaptations occur. Assuming that we have enough resources to handle stressors of that day, then it tilts a little bit towards the resilience side, and we get to add a little bit more resilience. And if it tilts the wrong direction, well, then we add a little bit more dysfunction or move our little counterweight the other direction. And now, I guess that the concept of balance there is important because you can't have no stressors, because if you have no stressors, it's going to flip your scale over and there's nothing for your body to adapt to. So that's really the balance that we're kind of always stuck dealing with. And unfortunately, it seems like everything is kind of stacked against us. Anything negative will push us to the negative, but if you get all positive, it doesn't push you to the positive because there's nothing for your body to adapt to. And does that make sense so far?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say that. So to contrast with that with traditional healthcare focuses mostly from or on the concept of genesis, which is identifying and eliminating disease. Pathogenesis is something bad is causing this disease, as opposed to the salutogenesis side is something good is creating health. So that's the difference.
And I guess this is more of a philosophical question here. Like, even though both of these approaches are to tackle health in some way, like one is more reactive, the other is more proactive. But the way we think about health, and to the point, even now, of course, things are changing. It's very much still very reactive. Was it like, I don't know, again, I'm not an historian. I don't know what's the history of how these habits were formed, that we always viewed health more of a reactive rather than not as a way of, things can be controlled or changed from the beginning, and that would lead to better life afterwards. It is a common knowledge, but not practiced as such on a mainstream medical or how it's medicine is done, right? So why do you think that is kind of our society is is like trapped into that kind of mindset up until now? Any thoughts on that?
So lifestyles in the past were much closer to nature and therefore inherently more salutogenic than they are today. People's lives involve a lot more physical activity, whole organic foods necessarily, and fewer synthetic and environmental stressors, perhaps fewer stressors. And so all of this naturally supported our resilience and overall well-being. But in truth, if our ancestors, they wouldn't go see a physician unless they had a problem. So it was still a pathogenic model. It's just that our ancestors didn't really have to worry about the salutogenic side or the building resilience side. That just happened naturally. That doesn't happen much anymore today. We have to go out and exercise if we want to get exercise generally, unless you're working in fields. And it's very easy to eat a diet nowadays devoid of nutrition and in excess with calories. So the salutogenesis or the salutogenic side of the balance there wasn't something that our ancestors really needed to give much thought to. That just happened. And that's the difference nowadays. Now, you can argue that the medicines and various things that a physician would have given ancestors is more salutogenic than the drugs and various things that we would get today. But the approach was still pathogenic in that there's something wrong with you that we need to fix. Here, take this tincture for whatever. Um, so, the conventional healthcare system's deeply rooted in that crisis-oriented mindset, focusing on addressing immediate problems. With saving lives, managing symptoms, and intervening during acute illness. And historically, that approach made sense because most major challenges were acute, such as infections, injuries, even childbirth complications. And modern medicine, to its credit, has developed powerful tools to handle those crises. And that reactive approach has been incredibly effective for acute conditions, for sure.
So really, the ecosystem, the environment, all those things have gone worse in a way of it's gotten far from the salutogenic lifestyle, to say so, as it existed. And that has kind of put us in more towards the medicine, how it's practiced now. And that's the risk of it there. Would you say could salutogenesis approach work alongside traditional medicine, or does it require a complete mind shift in mindset?
No, not at all. Salutogenesis is completely complementary to conventional medicine. Again, the challenge that we face today is that because we no longer live inherently salutogenic lifestyles, the health promoting side of that spectrum doesn't just take care of itself anymore. And conventional medicine has largely ignored that side of the scale and focuses almost completely on responding to disease. But no, salutogenesis doesn't replace the pathogenic approach. We still have to eliminate what's harmful and respond to crises, for sure. And it can, salutogenesis integrates, I think, seamlessly along with conventional medicine, proactively supporting overall health, resilience, so that fewer people reach the point of needing reactive treatments in the first place. I was going to say that by, so you break your leg, there's not much you can do about breaking your leg. And, but I guess that's not really true. You could actually strengthen your bones quite a bit. And a salutogenic lifestyle, working out in the fields, you're going to have much better bone density. So I guess I'll take that back. Hopefully, with a more salutogenic lifestyle, we'll even break our bones less. But for when it happens, we absolutely still need the pathogenic approach as well.
So in practical terms, what does this lifestyle look like? Are there habits or practices that define the salutogenic approach to health that anybody can, go ahead and start implementing? What are those? How does those look like? Can you explain a little bit about those?
Sure. I mean, a salutogenic lifestyle, or maybe I'd call it a eudemonic lifestyle, is really about creating balance between giving the body what it needs and eliminating what it doesn't. In many ways, we kind of instinctively know what this means. Eating a diet that meets our nutritional needs, reducing exposure to toxins, managing stress, regular exercise, connecting with others, and that holistic approach, can include daily habits like spending time outdoors, focusing on clean nutrition, staying active, nurturing positive relationships. I guess the aim is to create an environment both internally and externally where health can truly flourish. As I said, we kind of know these principles, but we often underestimate their importance for long-term well-being. I think that's the big point. Everyone knows this stuff. I know I should be working out more and exercising more, but we forget how impactful and how really important that is until you get sick.
And would you say like um, it is just is it just like because we are so consumed in what we are doing, it's just not, even though there is some awareness, we're not like inclined to take action towards it, right? So, and what is that? Is that really the mindset shift, or is it not? Like, so in your words, basically things exist, right? It's really is the mindset. It's not, we are not doing the action. That's what the problem is. But the outside ecosystem has changed and it has moved us more away from the thing. The food we are eating is not that good enough, or you cannot just keep it those healthy foods for more affordable costs, to say so. And those things are creating natural boundaries, and that's probably prohibiting people from attaining those things, right? So where do you see is the big problem? Is it just like the mindset itself, or is it just like because we are the product of the society and how this is, we are just fed into this whole black hole, to say so, and that's leading it to this, that we are finding it hard to come out of those habits.
I would say a little bit of both, but in the same way that conventional medicine has developed from, pathogenesis, where broke my leg, I need to go to the physician to have him help me get it fixed. We have this history of none of our ancestors needed to do all the special stuff to make sure that they were healthy. And so we kind of have this baked into us, this feeling that, well, we should just be healthy. If we're not sick, we should just be healthy. And that pathogenic approach to conventional healthcare has reaffirms this for sure. And so it becomes really easy to forget about the salutogenic side.
And if I guess more in your ecosystem, can you share an example where you saw someone's health and you saw the transformation, where there was intentionally made this effort to live this lifestyle? And could be you as well if you want to share your personal story. But if someone, again, can you share an example what they did and how it transformed and what stage it started and they started making these changes and how long it took?
Sure. Actually, I'd like to answer the question a little bit differently. It'd be easier to answer with, I changed my diet and I started exercising and everything about my life. Those stories are everywhere, and everyone understands why. That's a systemic perspective of salutogenesis. And while it's valid, absolutely, it's something that most people already understand. I'd like to share a more local perspective, one where applying the principles of salutogenesis led to incredible outcomes in an area that might not seem obvious. And that's treating untreatable diabetic wounds. So first, a little bit background for anyone unfamiliar with diabetes, but it's diabetics often develop severe foot wounds for blood circulation, nerve damage, and a weakened immune response. And the wounds then progress quickly and heal poorly and are prone to infection because high blood sugar levels then also exacerbate the situation by damaging tissues. And that creates a favorable environment for microbes. Now, conventional treatment is multifaceted with that, but it often fails. And primarily it's because the infection can't be eliminated. And then amputation becomes the only option to save the patient's life. So let's apply the principles of salutogenesis here to a doctor. a diabetic wound, and what do we see? So what shouldn't be present? Well, that's microbes and excessive oxidative stress. What should be present is the next one: nutrients and balanced cellular signaling. So let's focus on those. We want to eliminate the microbes. We want to reduce oxidative stress. We want to increase specific nutrients, and then we want to reset the cellular signaling. So I'd actually like to tell you a little story about somebody named Eduardo. So he was a diabetic who he was a runner. He would run to help manage his disease. He developed a severe foot wound, and conventional treatments failed, leaving amputation as the only option. And that would have really sucked for him, because then he wouldn't be able to run, at least not for a really long time, and only if he could get suitable prosthetic, which meant that you're taking away the one thing that he was using to help manage the disease in the first place. So our team applied a salutogenic treatment to this, and it was after, I think it was probably, normally it's about a month of failed standard of care or conventional treatment when they say, okay, we can't, this is untreatable, we can't fix it. But within days of a salutogenic approach, the wound healed. And Eduardo got to avoid amputation and was back to running fairly quickly. And the short, maybe a month or two after, you couldn't even tell that there was ever a wound there in the first place, which is kind of amazing that even any scarring didn't occur. And now Eduardo actually uses this approach proactively to prevent infections from. And so I guess what I found so amazing with that is this approach didn't specifically force anything to happen at the cellular level. It simply eliminated what shouldn't be there, increased what should be there, and let the body heal the way the body should heal. And the results from the salutogenic approach were significantly better than the conventional approach. Very. I don't know. I thought that was pretty exciting.
In this example for him, did it just reverse that episode, or is it like it reversed the condition itself, the diabetes?
No. So this doesn't. We weren't looking systemically, right? So sure, you could perhaps try and address the diabetes systemic, but that's perhaps a bigger problem with lots of other steps too. And depending on whether you're a type 1 or type 2, lifestyle changes might not fix it, that might just make it. Absolutely, you should be doing this. But what I wanted to do here, in response to your question, is take the salutogenic process and apply it locally just to the wound itself. And I guess I should also say we've now repeated this multiple times, and we have yet to find an untreatable wound that didn't respond extremely favorably. And remember, all of these are treatable. It was the next step is amputation, because conventional medicine couldn't treat the wound.
Wow. Little bit more towards the science part of it. So obviously, everybody, you can talk, these are the good things you should do, and that's the kind of lifestyle or approach you need to follow. But how much of this has been kind of, not to say stamped by science, but more like Like, are there any specific studies or research those are done more to back this approach and confirm that, this is what science support this philosophical concept? Is there something like this exist, or are there any specific studies, papers, or any evidence on those sites that exist, which kind of like says like we have done on this concept, this is what it looks like? Any thoughts on that? Any insights on that?
Sure. There's lots of science behind salutogenesis in general. And again, if we back up now to the systemic level, that's where most of this is being focused, right? Research in nutrition and exercise physiology and stress management consistently show the benefits of building resilience and supporting health, right? I mean, nutrition studies highlight how diets rich in whole foods and essential nutrients and antioxidants improve immune function and reduce inflammation and enhance cellular repair. Research in exercise demonstrates that regular physical activity builds resilience by strengthening the cardiovascular system and supporting metabolic and so even improving mental evidence from studies on stress management, mindfulness and meditation, even just spending time in nature shows measurable benefits, including reduced cortisol levels and enhanced immune response and greater mental clarity. So you could argue that Antonovsky is the way that he presented salutogenesis is something of a philosophical concept. He's much more tied to the psychological processes, but at least the way that I think of salutogenesis, it now has a solid foundation in evidence-based science grounded in biochemistry and physiology, cellular biology. And really the data is clear with all of that. We support the body's natural processes, the results.
And have you seen, I guess, any examples of, um, health systems or doctors? How are they integrating these salutogenic principles into their practice? Have you seen? Can you talk about few examples, what you've seen or what you see coming probably in coming days?
Sure. So, integrative practitioners are incorporating salutogenesis almost completely. Now, I would argue that in some cases they go too far, whereas they focus simply on, well, here, take all of this nutrition, so on and so forth. And they end up swinging, pendulum swings a little bit too far in that direction. But sure, I think that incorporating, preventive and supportive measures into routine care is where we should be starting. And that involves encouraging patients to manage stress, improve their diet, consider environmental factors. All of these small shifts can make huge difference over time. I guess, all right, did you have a question?
I was going to say, like, I want to touch upon a little bit about the supplements and the drugs. Those are there nowadays. Even though functional medicine and integrative medicine, even they still prescribe those, right? And I guess for my own clarity of thoughts here, just so I can draw a little bit more, more boundaries between salutogenic and how we are doing other stuff. So when I'm seeing GLP medications or supplements given to by integrative or functional medicine physicians in general in their practices, even though those are helpful in a way, would this be considered not like the salutogenic approach when you go into applying these drugs or these medicine, or would you say like no, as long as this is like not like detrimental to the body or causing negative net delta, then it's really not the way? What's your take there? So I get that the clear picture of, is there a line here of like prescription and drugs and do they still fall under this realm of salutogenic approach or not?
So very few drugs, what we call drugs, and actually, I had to come up with a new term. My mother always used to, oh, that's a drug, and talking about caffeine or alcohol or you know aspirin as well. And the way that we use the term drug really, I guess the most most drugs, the way that we use that term, force some specific action, and that's I would call that a cratogenic drug. From kratos is force in Greek, and so yeah, I guess I am very interested in the advent of salutogenic drugs. Now, in that case, it's a drug simply because it has been approved, not because it's forcing some specific action. I'd like to see a lot more of that. And that's where a lot of my interest really lies, in developing drugs or getting things approved that are specifically supporting the body. Now, that can be both removing microbes, removing pathogens, but then doing such in a way that doesn't interrupt the body's natural processes, and or if you can supply nutrients and such as well, so much better. But now we're kind of getting into the weeds of what you could do with salutogenesis. If you're talking about kind of more generally, what can what can normal doctors who wouldn't consider themselves integrative start doing, or I mean, as we discussed, start talking about some of the lifestyle factors, and that's happening more and more. And taking nutritions, making sure someone's taking vitamins, if they're not getting a sufficient amount of the nutrients that they need from their diet. And that's harder to do nowadays, right? Because, the soil's being depleted, so on and so forth. We get less vitamins in the foods that we're eating. And then that gets even worse if you move away from organic food. So one of the things that could be done kind of at a more systemic level for society, or at least within a country, is incentives could actually start playing a big role in promoting salutogenic practices, meaning like insurance companies could offer discounts to customers who spend a certain amount of time in the gym or purchase organic foods or participate in these programs. And it seems to me that without this type of incentive, people are going to have a hard time actually following through with these practices, again, until some event occurs. Now, that could be friends or family members or loved ones getting sick, or it could be them getting sick themselves. Problem is, if you don't make these changes until after you've gotten sick, well, it's much harder to go from sick to healthy and then continue on that path towards health. That's a lot harder. So if we can encourage people to do it earlier, that would be great.
Okay. And a little bit tying back to ion biotech and, eyeball, as in like it supports desalitogenesis by whatever you are doing at the outcome level. Could you touch upon how, is it really focused on, that tech is really focused on the cellular function and optimizing health through that, or is it something else? Could you touch base on a little bit exactly what ion biotech specifically there does, what role it plays in, what part of healing or health there? Could you touch upon that, please?
Sure. So ion biotechnology really is the study and focus of what ions, or and generally those are metals or sulfates, what or specifically which ones of those and why, and what happens when cells are under stress. Now, cells normally are under stress at the local level. It can happen at the systemic level as well, but that's different or more difficult to apply to, or different to apply to. And so, with ion biotechnology, we're really looking at what we can do simply by supplying the correct nutrients or a specific subset of important nutrients to the cells, and then what happens. And so that's a almost completely salutogenic approach. Now, I guess there is some pathogenesis in there as well, because, and actually maybe even a good deal, because the ions at the concentrations, now I haven't presented much on this yet, but the ions at the concentrations that they're at are highly antimicrobial. So that's eliminating what you don't want. And then the nutritive side is supplying what should be. And so when I contrast a salutogenic drug to a crowdogenic drug, I'm not really being quite so strict on the definition of salutogenesis as to I have to be adding something to increase health. In the case of infection, you can subtract something to produce health as well. But I'm contrasting with a crowdogenic drug in that the salutogenic drug is supporting the body completely, either supporting it with nutrients or supporting it by eliminating what shouldn't be there. Crowdogenic drug, on the other hand, is forcing the cells to do, or the body to do, a specific thing, whether the cells want to be doing that or not. And so that's where a lot of adverse side effects come from. Because, first of all, it's hard for us to develop drugs that do one thing, and one thing only. Normally, there's a whole host of things that go along with that. Many times, all of that host of things are things that we don't necessarily want. They just happen as well. But we want this one thing. And even if you've got a really good application here where, yeah, that one thing happened, and it happened really well. Well, now we're banking on the fact that, or the hope that the doctor prescribing that drug knows exactly what's going on at the cellular level and knows, hey, this is what needs to happen. Okay, if they're right, things will probably work out pretty well. If they're not right, it's not going to work out as well. And that's the difference. Is the salutogenic drug, we're not making any decision. We're simply supplying everything that's needed and trying to remove everything that shouldn't be there and letting the body do what it does normally.
Would it be right to state that this is more of an approach where there is, I don't know if no side effects, but less side effects, to say so, put simply? Would you say that?
Yes, there's significantly less side effects because we're not forcing the cells to do it. Now, I guess you can't really say there are no side effects because let's say you're treating an infection and you're killing a bunch of microbes. Okay, well, the body's got to clear those microbes. So there could be, different Herxheimer's reactions and such where the body is trying to now detoxify and get rid of all that stuff. Unless you're physically cutting it off and throwing it in the trash, the body's going to have to do that. Likewise, actually, I guess most of that would be with the detoxification pathways. And it's possible that somebody has poorly functioning detoxification pathways, and then you go into their body and then give their body what it needs to go through and kill a whole bunch of pathogens. Now, if the body can't detoxify all of that, well, sure, you could have some negative reactions. But those are a different type of a side effect. It's not a function of the drug, right? In this case, if we're talking about ion biotechnology isn't directly causing this. It's indirect from, okay, now the body is functioning and doing what it should have done. The problem is we're doing a whole bunch all at once. Now the body has to clear out all the junk that it created. Do you see my differentiation there? And why I see that? I mean, so generally, those types of side effects are, well, I had a cold and I'm really tired and I'm sleeping. Okay. Is that a side effect of having the cold? Yeah, it is. But did the viruses actually cause that? No, that's your body's response. Your body is saying, hey, while we're killing off these bugs that have infected you, we don't want you to be expending more energy because we need lots of energy to fight this off. So we're going to get you tired. You're going to want to sleep all day. And then, the next day when your energy comes back, you can run around and go do things again because you'll be all done.
Yeah. Okay. This is great. I mean, we are going to talk more in the coming episodes about more details on a few things that we discussed here. But to conclude today's episode, I guess one last question. What's one takeaway you hope everybody who's listening today, something that might inspire them to look at their own health differently? What would be that one thing you would like people to take away from this conversation today?
Well, I guess the big takeaway is that lots of things are happening very quickly on the front lines of salutogenesis. It's becoming common knowledge that taking care of yourself means you're going to be sick less often. And it's becoming more and more common knowledge that this will also apply to chronic diseases. There's still a lot of, anyone can get cancer. And, it doesn't matter how healthy you are, how much you exercise, so on and so forth. Well, that's not true. Yes, you can be exercising and otherwise in good health and still get cancer, but you can deal with it better the healthier you are, and you're actually less likely to get it the healthier you are. So I would still say you want to be healthy. But the other thing that I want to say is, so aside from the lifestyle changes and the kind of the systemic approach that we talked about, there's lots of innovative approaches and salutogenic treatments that are developing right now, and they're coming a lot faster than anyone would have thought. So Eduardo's story is actually a perfect example, right? By supporting body's natural processes, we've seen outcomes surpassing that of conventional medicine, or pathogenic focused medicine, or pathogenic drugs, however you want to bundle that together. And his experience is showing that when we eliminate what shouldn't be there, when we provide what's missing, he's capable of incredible healing. And again, part of the exciting, or the exciting part of it is that these changes are really happening faster than you might have predicted. And we're seeing shift in how we think about medicine, moving from not just managing disease to actively supporting health and resilience for sure. I guess this is only the beginning. I hope that listeners leave today feeling inspired by what's possible, not just for their own health, but for the future of healthcare as a whole.
And we are seeing these changes at the systemic level as well. Insurance companies have started to, I don't know the exact word, not like reward, but incentivize if they monitor people have done exercises and there are things like that, but at very, very surface level still. Hopefully this needs to go more and more how these things should be built upon. Um, but yeah, like you said, whosoever is listening, hopefully more people get inspired to take this and take this too in their own lives and people around them. Um, all right, great. Thank you so much, Jason. This has been great. One more very insightful uh, episode we recorded, and if I could get more details on the scientific paper, I would love to attach a link to that, something with this episode's description also, so people can refer it more of a evidence or credibility sake. And anything on eyeball tech, also we would love to put it with the show notes so that people can get it, download it directly from the show wherever they're getting it. Um, thanks again for your time. Much appreciated.
Great. Thank you.